Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar titled Increase Business Performance by Motivating the Right CRM Behaviors. It's a delight for us to have such a large crowd of you joining today. My name is Hannele Piipari, and I'm a Customer Success Manager with Salesforce in the Nordics. And we're hosting this webinar together with my colleague Michael van Heek, who's a Customer Success Manager in the Benelux. Before we begin, a few words about why we are here today. As a Customer Success Manager with Salesforce, how do we get people to use Salesforce more? How can we motivate and reward people for the right usage of Salesforce? Or how do we leverage Salesforce to help coach and mentor people? We've invited two experienced practitioners to share their experience and solutions to some of these issues. So at first, please allow me to introduce today's speakers. Welcome, Ian Turner. Ian is EMEA Hub Director for Qlik. And Qlik is a company that provides software and services that help organizations optimize data as a strategic resource in their decision-making process. Let me also welcome Peter Grant, who's CEO at CloudApps. CloudApps are experts in CRM best practice. They help improve business performance by using gamification to motivate and measure behavioral change. So, without further ado, Ian and Peter, over to you.
Hey, Hannele, thank you very much indeed, and good morning to everybody. This is Peter Grant speaking. As Hannele said, I'm the CEO of CloudApps, and I'm sat here with Ian Turner. Ian's the Director of the Hub of Qlik. Good morning, Ian. Hi.
Good morning.
So we really appreciate your investment of time that you're making today. And we hope to share with you really some ideas around how you can drive adoption of Salesforce.com. And the format of the next 40 minutes or so is I'll explain to you very briefly who CloudApps are, what we do, and show you how we do it. But I think it really comes alive when you actually have a customer that's been using the application, and what's a relatively new approach to driving usage of Salesforce.com, and more importantly, getting value and sweating the investment that you've all made on this call today by investing in Salesforce. So a quick bit of background about CloudApps. We're 4 years old as an organization. Most of our executives were ex-Salesforce.com senior executives, and about 4 years ago we were seeing the power of Salesforce.com, particularly as a platform, known as platform as a service. With our pedigree in the CRM space, we realized that we could use game mechanics to influence users in the use of Salesforce.com. So there are 4 things we're going to really discuss and show. One is driving higher user adoption and deeper engagement. So if we look at Qlik, and Ian sat here next to me, how long have you been a customer of Salesforce, Ian?
On and off as an organisation, probably 7-8 years. Yeah. As a user of Salesforce, probably greater than 10. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So, but you still think you want to get more value from the application, more functionality being used by a group of people coming in.
More adoption.
More adoption
is always the challenge.
Yeah. So you obviously fit the high user adoption, deeper engagement. Great. Okay. The other one is shaping behaviors from day one. So these are new customers to Salesforce.com. So somebody like Pearson, for example, Pearson Education, 2,000 users in China, not used to using applications for driving the sales process and also the customer success process as well. But they want to launch the application with a fanfare. They want to make it fun. They want to make it exciting as well. One the marketeers like is the continuous data quality. So think about the process. When you go to enter a lead into the application, is it the name, the email, the position that person has within the organization? Where did you find the lead from? Marketeers are always wanting to know that to make sure their marketing budget's been effective. And what will the follow-up action be, and how quickly will you follow up as well so you beat your competitors in the market to make a first impression? And then finally, what's my own personal favorite is coaching and mentoring. What you'll see SuMo doing is creating a rewards cabinet here. And effectively, where you go in the Salesforce application based on your job role, so whether it be leads and campaigns, whether it be contacts and accounts, whether it be opportunity management, that reflects a basic sales process of lead generation, qualification, opportunity management, deal closure, and obviously account management and customer success thereafter. And we're monitoring where the users are going, and we're rewarding them for the right types of behavior. And that's really their reputation as a sales, marketing, or customer service professional. So this bell curve is probably familiar with everybody on the call today. Pretty standard distribution curve of Salesforce.com. Salesforce is the best CRM system in the world. Having worked at Siebel, worked at Salesforce, and used various CRM applications throughout my career, I'm very passionate about the application itself. But what I've learned over the 15 years in the industry, it's actually not a technology issue, it's actually more a behavioral issue. And it's more of an education of the value that the application creates. Some people get it, so if you look at your pool of perfects here, this would be someone that understands what we call DMO. So how many discussions do I have to make, to get how many meetings, to basically book how many orders. And they would be very activity driven in the application. And therefore they will use the activity management, their home screen will be populated with their calls for the day, for their meetings, will be linked to a contact, which will be linked to an opportunity, or be linked to a trouble ticket, or linked to a campaign, but everything has a logical process in the system. Unfortunately, you also have a lot of Larry Laggards. So these are people that just don't get it, that they think that it's their God-given right to store the leads themselves in their black books, or in their desks at home, or on their phone. They're not putting them into the system. And what we're really going to focus on is how do we move that bell curve and really focus on the 60% to sweat the Salesforce.com asset. So to do this, we look towards a gaming industry. And gamification is not about playing games in the workplace. It's actually about motivators or levers that you can pull that are greater than money. So let's just explore some of those levers. So you probably might be all familiar with flight airline programs, and they have a leveling system or a loyalty scheme. And with British Airways, for example, you would start on a blue card, and then you would move up to a bronze card, then silver, then gold. And if you're lucky enough, or if you're unlucky enough to fly so much, you've been invited to the black club. Now, the way you move up through those levels is you spend more money and you accumulate air miles. But as you move through the levels, your status changes with the airline, and you get privileges. So, for example, when you go to the airport, you don't have to queue, you fast track through security, you go to the lounge, and depending on your card level, you could be the first to be upgraded on the airplane. But they're not giving any monetary rewards for your loyalty to the brand. But that's one form of game mechanics. Another one is progression bars. If you think about, most of you are probably on LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, there's always a progression bar that never completes itself. So it would say, for example, Ian, go and complete your education, or go and connect to more people, or you need some more endorsements. And you go and do this, but it moves forward slightly, but never always gets to the end. It's always encouraging you to do a bit more to improve the depth of relationship and your exposure on LinkedIn. Another area is using points, just like the mileage program as well. They can be dollars or whatever you want to render them in the application. But again, people like to accumulate and collect points. But my personal favorite is actually badging. Now, badging can sound quite trivial. You think about when you're in the Cubs or the Scouts, on your left arm, you would display your expertise for in what you were doing. But for me, it was building a canoe. It was important. First aid, I could never tie knots, so I've actually got that particular badge. But actually, that was about my mastery, how good I was at something. Now think about that in your environment. If you're a sales professional, if you're a marketeer or a customer service representative, how good are you at selling? How good are you at generating leads or converting prospects and doing qualification, for example, Ian? And people want to see that live effectively with the application as well. Another great one is leaderboards. And the reason why leaderboards are important is because we like to win, we like to compete, but more importantly, we like to be successful and have the ability to measure that success. Another key area is being valued and socially connected. We live in an incredibly open world today. If you look at Facebook and Twitter, nothing's really closed. Our reputation is effectively out there, but we like to feel connected with other people as well. And we also like to compete as team members. And if we're in a team together and we're competing with other people on this call, we would do everything in our power to make sure we win, because I wouldn't want to let you down, and hopefully, Ian, you wouldn't want to let me down either.
I wouldn't.
Good, that's good, okay. We employ smart people. But often people go unrecognized at work. In fact, 76% of people that voluntarily left the top 1,000 organizations in the USA last year left because they felt undervalued and not recognized by the organization. And for most people on the call, trying to hire talent and trying to retain the best talent is always a challenge within the organization. And then finally is structure. We like to structure. We're bombarded today with so much information. So if you're training people, you're asking them to do something, what exactly are you asking me to do? If I follow that structure, I want to be rewarded for doing it because that's what I've been asked to do. Okay, now a bit of fun now. What's also important is we're all different and we respond differently to promotions as well. These are the Bartle player profiles, and there are 4 sort of key types of players. So let's deal with the Explorer first of all. About 10% of you will be prominent in the profile as an Explorer. This, simplistically, is somebody that likes to solve problems. They won't jump to conclusions. They need to see factual information before they make a decision. They may play games like Sudoku and chess and enjoy mazes, but they're quite egotistical. So when they solve the problem, they will come back to their peer group and say, hey, look at me, I'm intellectually more superior than you. The biggest bulk of gamers are actually socializers. And social games, this is absolutely exploding in the gaming industry. So believe it or not, 700 million people a week spend over 3 billion hours playing social games. That's 10% of the Earth's population. And the reason why they do it is to de-stress and to have fun and also to be connected, to feel socially connected as well. So just think about Candy Crush and the explosion of Candy Crush. Now, above the line, the achievers and killers lend themselves particularly well to the sales arena. So achievers, they love the game mechanics. They love leaderboards. They love to measure themselves. They love collecting badges as well. But what's really, really important to them is their experience and being recognized for all the good that they do within the workplace. So think about a sales conference where you may call out the top performer worldwide. That person will never forget going on stage, shaking the hand of the CEO for being the best of the best. That's really important to them, more than the plaque that we may actually give them. And then finally, it's a killer. A killer's like an achiever on steroids, but it's all about the killer. It's about the win. The faster they win, the better. And the more of their peers that see them harness the kill, then that makes them feel really good. And they are diametrically opposed to socializers. Now, why have I bothered to explain this? Because one size doesn't fit all. It's really important culturally that you understand your organization and the tone of language that you use to communicate with these different individuals based on what their job role is. So just from a best practice point of view, when you look at gamification, I'll show you a demo in a moment, you can get very excited and think, oh, we can gamify absolutely everything and stick badges in here. That's not the right approach to take. And often when you roll out a new system, or it's quite complex, or the perception from the user would be they think it's a mountain to climb. You know, this shouldn't be a mountain, and you shouldn't start at the mastery level or the expert level. You should come down to ground zero. Everybody starts as a novice, and then you progress the whole organization through. And the important thing is you need to think of yourself as Sherpas, effectively. So if you're in sales operations, if you're sales leaders or systems admin, you are the Sherpas guiding the user through the process to get the best value from the system. And with that, Ian, I'd like you to talk a bit about this when we come on to your section, is really getting that, what we call flow, correct. So you don't make it too easy, but you don't want to make it too difficult either. So I don't know if anybody in the call's ever played Candy Crush, but they are very clever at making it simple at the beginning, but it very quickly gets more challenging as you go through the different levels and becomes quite addictive in some cases as well. And you want to do exactly the same with the application. And therefore, you need to prioritize business objectives or pains you're trying to address first of all, and not try and do everything at once, basically. If you get this right, and you create a buzz and you create a different approach to using the application, and you're rewarding the users for using the application, they will start to see the true value in Salesforce.com, i.e. that it's not a top-down management exercise to generate reports and pretty dashboards in Salesforce.com, but it's actually an application that's run to make them richer and more productive as well, or having a higher status in the workplace. So with that, let me just flip over now and give you a quick demo of the application. So I'm in here in Salesforce, And this is a standard vanilla Salesforce. This is a demo org. I'm only going to do generate one lead and show you how a trigger works on the gaming engine. But before I do that, you'll see something different here on your home screen. This is all highly configurable. The panes you can see on the left-hand side. This is my Motivate pane. So Vincent, do you know what Vincent is, Ian?
No.
Okay, Vincent is a mountain range. So the leveling system we've used, instead of using martial arts, or I'm really excited for you, Ian, to tell us what you've got, we've actually used mountain ranges. That's completely configurable. We chose mountain ranges because sales is about peak performance and reaching the summit, but you basically start at Ben Nevis and you're trying to get to Everest by the end of the year. How do you get up the mountain? You gain experience. How do you gain experience? You fill out Salesforce.com correctly based on the process that we think generates the best value for the user. And you also have a ranking here as well. So you can be ranked as a team, you can be ranked as an individual. You can see this particular user is in the Atlanta region and they're ranking #1, which is fantastic for them. So let me quickly show you how I get up the mountain. So I'm going to create a new lead here. As I say, this is basic. I'm going to pick on you, Ian, as you're sat next to me. Click. Oops. Okay, now I've created the lead in here, I've put your name in here, I've put Qlik the organization, and I'm going to save you as a lead. And you expect my experience points to change. Okay, it hasn't changed. And the reason why it hasn't changed is because I haven't followed the process correctly, because that lead doesn't have a higher value for the organization because I don't know your phone number, I don't know your email, I haven't rated you, where you've actually come from. Now, if you look at these nudges here that you can see, these are called inline nudges, and they're recommending to me or pinging to my consciousness what is the correct procedure to do to actually make sure I get those particular points. So if you think about this on the left-hand side as my to-do list, on the right-hand side as my done list. So if I now go back and edit, and if I put your phone number in here, Ian, okay, and I put your email address, which is here, and I'm going to rate you in. You are a hot man, but I'm going to rate you hot. So I've qualified you as a lead. You've got a project. You've got budget. You've identified timelines. You're in a procurement process as well. And I've actually met you through one of our partners. And obviously, I will put the partner in. Now, this becomes useful information with regards to data quality. So if I save the lead, okay, as you can see, that lead's been saved. Now, what's happened in the background is the gaming engine has basically looked at these fields, and it's making sure these fields are being filled in correctly. And as it happened, it instantaneously rewards the user for doing that operation. And that's called instant gratification. You can see now I've jumped up to 103 experience points. So that's a very simple way of showing you how the application works. But we can off of any standard CRM object in Salesforce.com. We can also trigger off any custom object that you may have built and put into the application. So just moving down here quickly, we've got promotions. So you may want to promote things out to the end user, specific things you're trying to change their behaviors or show them rewards you can do. You can also use this for spiffs. So think about sales performance incentive for the field force. So the end of the week, the end of the month, the end of the quarter, to get extra points or linked to their compensation plan. And then finally, I've got my trophy cabinet or my rewards here. So if you remember at the beginning of the call, we were talking about our reputation. So what is this person's reputation as a sales professional? How good are they, for example, are they at prospecting and generating leads? Well, this prospecting badge actually represents what I was doing by generating Ian as a lead. And this was at 29 before I started that process, has now jumped up to 30. How good are my account management? So how much time do I spend in the account, cleaning the data there, putting new contacts information in, mapping the hierarchy, for example, with the accounts as well. This is converting leads, this is leveling up, this is using Chatter. So Chatter is a fantastic way to collaborate, but often if it's not linked to a business process, you won't get the adoption you'd expect from Chatter. So incentivizing people, getting people to comment, to collaborate and move away from email, using game mechanics is a really good way to do that. And you can see closing deals here. This guy's got 2 deals closed. There are 1,600 badges that ship out of the box with SuMo, but you can put your own badging into the system as well. But the key thing here is I can look at this straight away and be concerned that this particular user is not closing that many deals. So remember the equation DMO, how many discussions do I need to have to book how many meetings to have and how many orders, maybe this person's got a closing problem. So perhaps I need a bit of coaching from you. So finally, just look at my profile. So SuMo is a partner of work.com. So if you think about SuMo as an application that's data-driven and instant rewards a user for the right behavior, and then you would look at those the rewards cabinet, and you would take that data into work.com, and you'd work out a performance management program and setting goals for the individual. But here I can see my leaderboards, I can see what my ranking is, I can see how I'm performing over time against the team. The good news is I'm getting better, but also the team's getting better as well. I can look at other teams. So I know the call today is many different organizations and countries across Europe, but being British, we like to compete with the French, and the French with the Germans, and the Swedish with the Finnish, etc. But you see all the different teams deployed here, or it could be, I think in your case, you've got regional and you've got geographical teams. And then I look at my achievements. So some of you probably been wondering on the call, where did those triggers come from? So with our long pedigree in CRM, we know what the best practices are for using Salesforce.com. We've pre-programmed SuMo with 50 plus best practices that automatically trigger, which get you going very live out of the box at the end of the day. So that's all I really want to do talking about the application. What I'd like to do now is hand over to you, Ian. And if you can talk us about the selection process, the rollout, please, of SuMo and some of the results that you've been seeing as well.
Sure.
And probably a good idea to just talk about the company.
Okay. Okay. Good morning. Yes, I'm Ian Turner. I work for Qlik. We are almost $500 million software company with the market leaders in business discovery. And as you'll see on our webpage, what we really specialize in is helping people answer the next question rather than just looking at static reports. And I'll show you in a minute one of the little apps we created using Qlik to analyze the data from SuMo. So I look after our EMEA hub, which is both telesales and telemarketing functions across EMEA. We've got about 88 staff in Winnersh. 23 different languages, covering 23 countries and 16 different languages. And the core roles are the lead qualification, lead generation. As you see on the right-hand side, we have very privileged to have a great marketing organization that generated for us in Europe a total of 71,852 leads from marketing last year. And it's our job to actually qualify those and turn those into something that we can pass on to our sales force. And our sales force could be our named account managers, it could be our mid-market people and our partners, and equally it could be our small to medium business salespeople who are also based in the hub. So we have marketing qualification, we have SMB sales, and we have enterprise account management support. So as you'll see as we go through, part of the challenges we have is figuring out what the triggers and motivations are for each of those different roles. We use absolutely Salesforce is the heart of our process. We use Marketo to do a lot of the lead scoring and analysis of what comes from the web, and then those are fed into the hub to do the qualification. So probably the biggest challenges we have overall, and this little picture on the side, I'm not going to talk through any detail, but it's an illustration of some of the challenges we have when you have that many people in different languages at different roles, is getting the communication and implementing a process so that everyone uses it consistently, such that you can carry on improving the process. One of the challenges we have is when we want to do something is how do we communicate? Some people are good at reading documents. Some people are absolutely not good at reading documents. And don't read them at all. Some people have real challenges with language. So as a really silly little example of the kind of thing you get in Salesforce, when they set up our lead qualification, they created a disposition for a call which was left a voicemail, which was intended generically to mean I made a call attempt. But what we found was people were just randomly picking any other disposition because they didn't leave a voicemail. And all the Americans and the Brits were cool with like, we'll just put a voicemail in there because I just tried. But we ended up having to change the name of that to call attempt in order to get all the other people around Europe actually understanding it, because they'd say, well, I didn't leave a voicemail. I can't use that disposition. I didn't leave a voicemail. So, driving people to the right behavior is actually a lot harder than it looks. And we've, even getting our follow-up process done properly is tough. Which is then about process adoption, because one of the things we're investing a lot of time and money in with Salesforce is we're about to do things like account scoring. We're about to do lots of different ways to ascertain what's the best things we should follow up first. Because when you have the luxury of 70 or 100,000 marketing leads a year, you might not always have all the resource to follow them all up, so you've got to determine which ones are the most important ones to follow up. So when you invest in that technology, if people don't follow the process, that investment gets wasted. So one of the things we were looking for is something to help us solve that problem as well. And then also, keeping people motivated. It's a relatively tough environment when you're meant to be making 40, 50, 70, 80 calls a day, depending on your role, day in, day out. And yes, we motivate people with career progression. But actually, how do we keep them at that high level of motivation to do the job and do a quality job every time? And then actually, one of the things that we wanted to understand is what was the behavior of the people that have the best results. And that is not that apparent just looking at things like call stats and data in Salesforce. So we actually went out, initially, we went out looking for a product to help with the motivation and competitions. We were using a product called Competition Builder, which we weren't terribly happy with. It was complicated to set up. It was typically a single tracking one thing at the same time. But actually, the thing we went out looking for was a wallboard information display system. So we could actually put league tables up on the screens around the hub. And some of the options we looked at were pretty poor. And we looked at a number of other SuMo-alike players, and I have to be honest, we probably didn't know what we wanted until we saw it. And then we went through the process of understanding what SuMo could do for us, and then it could really help drive more product, more adoption of Salesforce, understand people's behavior. So we probably, in the middle of last year, went through the process of doing some evaluations, and we made a decision early November to go with SuMo. And that's the point at which we started discussing achievements, what are the key things to drive the right behavior. Reality is most of the deployment complexities were within Qlik, because it's a native app and there's no external technology effectively involved. It went in very quickly. Getting it actually switched on was more of a internal process around ramping up to Christmas and not wanting to change things and so on within our own Salesforce implementation. But we actually planned the deployment, and then we did a stealth run. So it was running in the background, trying to understand what the team were actually doing from day to day. So we got some comparative data, which I'll show you in a minute, from when we were running stealth in the background to when we went live.
So you might want to just explain stealth. The end user can't see the UI.
So the end users were completely unaware of anything going on. So we created for each of the key roles, of which we really have 3, we created the 5 or 6 things, and actually in sometimes 7 or 8, which we were cancelled against, and maybe we should have listened a bit more. But we created those different achievements and then monitored which ones were triggering without any kind of prompting or any involvement.
That created a baseline for you, effectively.
Correct. It gave us a baseline. It gave us a way to actually, as you said, create that game mechanic so that we know that when we go through the levels, within the first week, we're not going to have half of the team being at level 12 and finish the game. but equally after the first month, they're not all stuck on level 1 and they can't progress. So we balanced that pretty well, and we'll see the results of that in a second. I think the other thing that we really decided to do was make sure we got the internal launch right in terms of the communication, the timing, the messaging, and to make sure that people saw it as a motivator and something to help them. So we put quite a lot of effort into that, and I'll walk you through some of the ways we did that in a second. So we went live on the 10th of February. I was actually keen to go live earlier, but we had our sales kickoff. We sent everyone off for a week at the end of January, and realistically, 10th of February was a good time to do it. In hindsight, actually, it turned out to be quite good because it gave us the first quarter is quite a short quarter, where we've ironed a few things out, figured out how to manage it ourselves, and actually we've learned a lot in the last month. So the launch. So what we did was this is a picture of the office during the launch. So we got everyone to gather around, and we on the Sunday we had people come in and decorate the office. We put various themed things around the office and actually made it a bit of an event. We also then sent teasers out. We had our design company give us some claws and some things to send out on email to tease people what it was about. And actually, the interesting thing is no one had a clue what it was about. This was going out 10 days beforehand. They didn't know whether we were going to set live cats in the office to get people to make more phone calls or get attacked by a lion or something. So the theme we used, we'll come on to, but we used the are you a hunter, are you cunning, are you intelligent, and try and compare them to something that made the levels mean something, and the results of that have been quite amusing as well. So we then took them through these are similar to the slides we use. We took them through a presentation of telling them about, people we all love playing games, and actually in the hub we try and have fun. We have off-site events. We have a bit of a social club where people go and play five-a-side football and try and build up a bit of teamwork and atmosphere in the hub. We know the people in the hub are competitive. We are set up really as an incubator for future salespeople. We absolutely want to promote people through the ranks in the hub itself. So we have probably about 7 or 8 key roles that people may progress through in their time with us, but then the intention is to then develop field salespeople over time as well. And absolutely, people want to have a bit of fun and not take everything too seriously, but get the job done at the same time. We then took them through a bunch of screens, which Peter's already shown you a lot of those already, but we explained to them the thing in the sidebar, and then so they were comfortable with it. The interesting thing is, we knew people don't like reading documentation. We know people don't like processes, and it appeared, I think we said, launches at 12 o'clock. We put a picture of a clock on the screen, and it went live, and it just slipped into their day-to-day behavior. And actually, we hadn't had one person say, well, how does this work, or how do I? It's all there. So in terms of usability, for us, that was great. The ones that we have then trained separately are the managers. So in terms of setting up the competition, so that worked. So the levels we chose were Wildcats. I
have to ask him, why Wildcats?
Why Wildcats?
Who came up with the idea?
We went through. We wanted to have the whole team involved in deciding what the levels were.
Because culturally, you're a mix of all different dialects.
I've got 4 directors reporting to me, that a German guy, French lady, a Dutch guy, and an English guy. It's a very culturally diverse team. Mountains didn't mean things to some people. The connotation of, actually, we almost ended up with judo belts, but that was a bit dry and not really, it didn't have the fun element.
Yeah, well, I like the picture that you showed the launch in the office, and I was there, and having the lions and tigers roaming around the office, and people came in.
Yeah, it was a bit cheesy, but we actually bought some big cardboard cutout lions and tigers. we used it as the theme of cunning and you're a hunter, and we wanted to actually to identify with these things. We went through lots of choices about animals, and we found that actually this one fitted very well in terms of there were some aspirational levels. The funny thing was immediately that we announced what the top level was, we had a big oh no, it's not a tiger, it's a lion. Lion's the king of the jungle. Actually, the tiger is the biggest cat by size. And then we ended up with discussions about, okay, and if a lion and a tiger went to it, who would win? And all so it was great. So, but the part of the fun of it was, within 2 days, I had people coming up to me and said, I'm now a rusty spotted cat, or I'm an ocelot, and they're still doing it. So we had a kickoff or an off-site training event last week, and one person's made it to snow leopard, and very proud, big round of applause and all that kind of stuff. So it's worked in terms of the fun, the competitive element.
But what happens when you get to a level? So you've got a lucky dip box, haven't you?
Yeah. So we have everyone when they level up, which probably happens. Everyone seems to be leveling up every 4 or 5 days, maybe 3-4 days. Some people quicker. There's a notification coming from Salesforce to the manager, so we can reward that of going, well done, this person's leveled up. The thing that we didn't expect that we found is they're all congratulating each other. So one colleague saying, oh, my colleague next to me is now an ocelot, and an email goes around the whole group, and they all go, well done, Asya, you're an ocelot. So again, bizarre conversations that we never really expected. But also when we level up, we have there's a box on the hub PA's desk. So people go to her and say, I've leveled up, can I have my reward? And they pick a ticket, and it's, again, amazing how people love this. But it's either, I think 1 in 5 prizes is something like a bottle of wine or an £20 Amazon token. But the rest of them are either a Kit Kat or a Lion Bar. And it keeps that momentum going, and it's been great fun. The key thing, really, the interesting thing for us is the results. So this is a screen grab of a Qlik app. This is Qlik View, and what it's actually showing us here is this is just an import of 14,000 rewards that have been granted. So we dumped it all into a file to actually try and understand patterns, what's going on. The red things, the green selections are things we've selected. So this is 4 weeks worth of data for data in live and in stealth. The white means nothing, none of these things are selected at the moment. I'll show you some selections in a second. But the number one thing that hit us is that within 4 weeks, the volume of things being done that we wanted them to do, hence the achievements, had probably more than doubled, 2 to 3 times improvement immediately. So they all looked at what the achievements were and twigged very quickly that, oh, if I actually put my call notes, so one of the challenges we had was people would make phone calls, especially the inside sales people, less the BDRs, less the people who do lead gen, but often the inside sales people would have conversations with people. They'd be on the phone for 10 minutes, leave no call notes. It was in their notebook, or it was in Outlook, or it was in an email, and we wanted to capture that corporate history. So immediately said, oh, I get SuMo points for doing that. We had a rule that said, I think it's 150 or 200 characters left in a activity, they get a reward, and immediately they're doing it more and more. So,
but that's important. I mean, I think you said you're making 40, 50, 60 calls a day. I don't think
some are.
But intellectually, you can't remember a call you may have made 3 months ago to a prospect. You can't remember, you'd all start the conversation from the beginning. So
absolutely, absolutely. And I think the other thing that we want to do is we have quite a sophisticated lead scoring mechanism. So our lead generators are paid on quality of what they do. And we have to see evidence when we score an opportunity. We have to see evidence that they have asked questions and they had a dialogue around timescale or implication of the business plan and all those kind of things. So if they don't put those things in, that affects them. So the first selection, this made me really happy, because we all know that if we follow up opportunities within 48 hours, they are much more likely to convert to closed-won deals, and that's really what we're about. And the increase in focus, because actually one of the things here is we give quite a lot of points comparatively for following up within 48 hours. So that was an immediate boost. It's a really direct and easy one. We can communicate it and tell people over and over again that if you have an opportunity with a score of X and you follow it up, it's more likely to convert. But actually, this just drove it home and has driven the right behavior. The next one, a little bit more complicated. We have on an opportunity, we have an area called the sphere of influence, which is a collection of fields where we gather information about people in the decision-making process. One of the challenges with that is it would be quite sparsely filled out, if at all. And again, a dramatic increase in we had a few people initially sort of whinge and complain about, oh, well, you know, I never fill all those fields in. You know, no one's ever asked us to before. Well, you sort of have, and it's part of the process, but you've never read that document. But they're all now starting to do it a lot.
So some people on the call might think, well, if you have to do that, you've been trained on it, why just make the fields mandatory?
Yeah, and what happens is if you make the fields mandatory, they just fill it with crap, basically. So what we tended to find was the more things you made really mandatory, and things like lead dispositions, you really have to tune that right to get them to put the right data in. So, for example, if we goal people on finding bigger opportunities, all the opportunities get bigger. They're not really bigger opportunities, but they look bigger because they get paid to make them bigger. And it's all about the getting the right result and motivating people to actually represent things correctly.
Or they won't start the process maybe in the first place because they haven't got the data. So they can,
absolutely. Yeah. And actually, so what we're really learning from this, and we're using quite a lot of the data discovery stuff to actually figure out which awards are triggering, which ones aren't triggering, and the nice thing as the result of this is the person who is now a snowbird, who is the highest scoring individual, is also the individual that's got the highest number of leads generated and also the highest quality score.
Okay.
So my fear was always that if we do this and we get it wrong, we start rewarding the wrong behavior.
Yeah.
And Simon, the consultant that works on, absolutely said, no, we won't do that. We'll map it to the right stuff and it'll be fine. It is, and it's working. So it is driving the right behavior.
So ultimately, that's going to drive revenue as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, it's very, very public, but in a really nice way. So we're now putting up the leaderboards around the hub. We've got the screens up, so they're starting to go up as well. So I think my lessons we had was because we have 3 or 4 different roles, we probably ended up with too many achievements, and we ended up with a little bit of a confusion after a couple of weeks on should we switch some off, should we switch some on. I think we probably should have started a little bit smaller, but then you told us that in the first place. And we also find that we've had to adapt and move fast. So the great thing, I love these people. They are salespeople at their heart, and very quickly some of them figured out how to game the system. They figured out what the things that gave them awards, and we had a couple of people, instead of leaving one call note of 120 characters, they'd leave 3 every time. And you know what? Good on them, but we just changed the game. And it's so easy to change. I mean, I can go in, look at the data and say, actually, I want to promote this activity. I'm going to give it more points. I'm going to reduce that one. I'm going to switch this one on and off. And actually, it works pretty seamlessly. So
I think there's 2 things. I mean, the system can stop some of that behaviour. Once it's rewarded, 5 times, for example, in the week, you don't get rewarded anymore. So you make sure the 5 you do are of the highest quality. But also, because you follow through a process, if someone's going to put a lead that has no value into the system, when it converts to an opportunity, they're going to keep getting rejected, and therefore their reputation as a salesperson is not going to hold very well within the organisation.
But equally, when the awards have been running for a while, and actually everyone's got the hint they should be doing this, then we'll turn it off. We'll move on to something else. I mean,
so your objective is to make it habitual. They see the value. I was talking.
Correct.
When these systems are deployed, often they come top down and not bottom up. So you're trying to improve the value effectively of Salesforce to them. The penny drops, I've got it, and now let's move on to something else.
Correct. Yeah. And so now what we're doing is we're in the last few weeks of the quarter, so we want to turn on a specific competition on a couple of key achievements. And again, really easy to do, really easy to set up to flip the wall boards to actually show those specific achievements. And it's all native Salesforce, so we're not having to learn anything new. It's normal reports, and they're all Salesforce screens. So administration-wise, it's very light.
Yeah, and I think the openness is really important as well, as you say, because it's on the leaderboards, it's put on the displays as well. They're on public display.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I say, expect the users to figure out how to gain some of the system, keep changing the game, and make it fresh. And actually, the whole good thing for us is, we're still learning, and will be for a long time. So it's actually helped us so far, and we expect it to be a major part of what we do going forward.
Brilliant. Okay. One question I had. This is obviously the hub. You've got a few hundred licenses. We're just talking about the European hub. You've got the US and Singapore as well. But you've also got a field sales force. Do you think SuMo would work out in the field where people are more nomadic and traveling?
Yeah. I mean, I think the fact that it's a lot of those guys use their iPads and their iPhones a lot.
Right.
So I think we'll probably change the game dynamics for some of those things. Around more quality pipeline management metrics, but yeah, I absolutely no reason why it wouldn't work. And that's part of the planning is learn how to run it and administer it, and then roll it out more widely. I mean, the next step is to put it into the Americas hub and the Asia hub. Although we're already doing that for the specific competition, but actually at the level we're doing to actually roll it out more generally. So.
Okay, great. Ian, thank you very much. Just one final slide, Michael, before we open up for questions. And this is really, it's as Ian's displayed, it's all about people's behaviour, and it's given the prioritisation right as well. And CloudApps offer what's called a SuMo Pulse. So we say bringing Salesforce to life, but really this is done outside of the application. And this planning board here gives you the ability to really identify what your business pains are. So in Ian's example, it was data quality of the leads, the sphere of influence, it's how quickly you follow up on the leads, etc. It can be the activity management because people weren't putting the activities in there. It can be your forecast accuracy. But you can't do all of those from day one, so you need to really prioritize which business pains will you address first of all. And then how will you address those business pains? That's what these green cards mean down here. And then how will you measure them? So what will be the KPI? And so when do I need to do something by, and what will the measurement specifically be for that? And then going right down to a granular level here, what specific behaviors or actions in Salesforce are you asking me to do? So when I complete a lead, it needs to be at least 90% of the data needs to be in there before I get rewarded. I have to follow it within 48 hours, for example. And that all gets documented here on the board. And then we come bottom up and we look at the culture of the organization. That's why I was asking you about the leveling system and different geographies and the users that you have here. But what really resonate with all of your users. So what type of company are you? What are your corporate values? But much more importantly is your users. So go back to the achievers, killers, socializers, etc., and the tone of language that you will use to communicate with them. So we put together a whole communication strategy here for you. So is the video from the CEO. Are you going to use Chatter, which is the backbone of communication for SuMo on the Force.com platform? Or we use email or leaderboards being pumped up around the displays, etc. And then finally, we look at the rewards, and this is the fun part. So, we advocate little and often. It's not the prize itself, it's more about the winning and the recognition for actually doing that. So we will create competitions that run weekly, monthly, quarterly, half-yearly, yearly, etc., and based on the value. And that planning session takes about 3 hours per profile. So, Ian, you had 4 profiles, I think you were saying in the hub. But it's a really useful exercise to help executives visualize how the program will work, and most importantly, be sustainable and keep that buzz going throughout the user community. So with that, Michael, I think Ian and I have completed our side of the presentation. If I hand back to you, if you have any questions, please.
We did get a couple of very good questions from the audience, so thank you for those, and please keep them coming. But first one, so Do you find that there are differences on ways to motivate people depending on culture that they come from? If so, are there examples of differences and what works well and what doesn't work particularly well?
Interesting. We did sort of expect that because we do know that when we do things that are a little bit more irreverent and amusing, certain cultures react differently to those than others, and we do have to be culturally sensitive to that sometimes. But actually, interestingly enough, the theme was key to that. I think the Wildcats theme worked very well for us, and we've had none of that at all. I'm actually quite surprised that we didn't have little collections of people that said they didn't get it, but none at all.
Yeah, and I think just adding to that, Ian, is we have a rewards library, so over 100 different rewards in there. So whether it be appearing in the corporate video, free parking space for a week, a room named after you, a donation to charity, spa days, etc. We fit that culture of the user to see what they want to go for. But you can use chatter, so you can use polling in chatter to say this month's competitions are going to be these 10 rewards. What would you like to be rewarded? And then the users then vote for the rewards. So they're participating even before they get into the game and being incentivized to do that.
I think one of the things we tried to do, to be honest, is to move away from being, as I call it, coin operated. I won't do something unless I get an award for it. And the almost the token Lion Bar, Kit Kat, or some sort of lucky dip type reward has actually worked better than I expected. We do have a bunch of awards coming up that are for more specific competitions. So it could be the highest number of deals closed in the quarter, or the best leads generated by quality. But actually, I think it's actually working well to exactly as you say, little and often, and not make them too overly monetary in terms of I'm not going to do it unless I'm going to get a big reward. It's the peer recognition and the fun of it actually is what seems to be working.
Yeah, you create a fun environment, happy environment, more productive, and happy employees is contagious.
Yeah.
Great, thank you for that.
Sorry, Michael.
Yeah, sorry, we do have a few more. So does it work on iPad in conjunction with Salesforce One? One of the questions we got from the audience.
Yes.
Great. And another very good question, what are the typical lead times for rolling out SuMo? So if you had to, pick an average, if you will.
Yeah, we would say 60 to 90 days, only because you need to do the SuMo board planning sessions. That would be the next step. And depending on how big the rollout is, how many different profiles you have to get, that needs to be taken, documented, tested in your sandbox first of all, so that can take 30 days. Then we'd advise the client to run 30 days in stealth mode, as you saw the effect Ian had then, and created a baseline. And then the next 30 days is spent rolling out. And of course, you can roll out in a day, as Ian showed, but if you're rolling out a global system like Pearson, which is 2,000 users, that might just take a bit longer. But 90 days or less is the answer, Michael.
Great. Thank you. We actually got two questions around. So does it work with both custom and standard objects within Salesforce?
Yes.
And then obviously you'd be linking these back to your sales playbook activities and linking that to this performance scale.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. And another question is, how do you prevent the engagement effect and the behavioral change from tailing off?
So that's a really good question. I think that's why we came up with the SuMo planning board, because you need to constantly keep changing, keep refreshing. I think Ian was alluding to that as well.
Yeah.
And they will try and game the system, so that actually becomes a bit of fun, challenging with the users. That becomes a game in itself. But the reason, as I say, the board is here is to help visualize over the next 12 months, 24 months of how you're going to drip in all the performances. But I cannot stress enough, and I know Ian didn't listen to us first time round, but you start simple. Remember the novice. Start with the novice, move to the intermediate level, get to the expert before you go to mastery. we all try and jump to mastery straight away, and if you do that, one, you won't be successful, but secondly, you know, you won't get the results that you're actually looking for, and the fun and everybody participating. That's the key to this.
Great. Thank you, Peter. We are coming up on the top of the hour. I have two quick questions still left. One being, is this applicable beyond sales, so for marketing and service reps as well?
Yes, sorry, this is very sales focused, but absolutely for marketing and service.
Well, most of the majority of the team are really marketing. I mean, they're telemarketing, lead filtering people rather than quota carrying salespeople.
Yeah.
So.
And we've got clients with the Service Cloud console that are using SuMo as well for, you know, how quickly they get back to resolve a trouble ticket, the quality, you know, emergency SLAs, etc., and being rewarded for that type of behavior.
Great. All right, and the last one we got from the audience, is it possible to have teams competing against each other as well as individuals?
It is, and it's really important as well. As I said in the presentation, when we compete as a team, it raises the bar even higher. We don't want to let each other down. That's a massive play within the system.
All right. Wonderful. Well, I didn't see any additional questions come in, so spot on time. I want to thank everybody for attending. We will be following up with a recording of the webinar plus the presented presentation, and I want to thank everybody for their time today, and talk soon.
Great. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.